Florida State finally has a quarterback.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk Seminoles with me. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, Florida State wins 41-7 over Charleston Southern, and a major reason why is true freshman quarterback Luke Kromenhoek going 13-20, 209 yards, and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And it's about time Florida State finally had a quarterback. So today's show is going to discuss not only his development, but what it means for the Florida State offense, the program, recruiting, and everything that comes with it. And oh, by the way, that game this next weekend against Florida. So we're going to break all of that down. But at the end, I want to talk about the long-term projection. To get there, we got to talk about what he did in the game and what I liked. So first off, I really thought it was interesting that he was just more convincing with his throws, meaning there was just a cohesiveness and the ability, not only he had the arm strength and the athleticism to avoid the rush and all that, but like take the throw he had to Ja'Kai for the touchdown, where Ja'Kai makes guy miss and scores. He let that sucker rip. You have to make that throw. It's a bubble throw. What do I mean by that? A bubble throw, there's a small bubble you got to throw it into. It's a little more than a window, but to get it like he did, you got to put a lot of heat on it, and it was still very accurate. That's not normal. So he's gotten a little more cohesiveness with Ja'Kai, obviously. It was just a safety coming over. He just beat the safety there with his arm strength, so that's God-given, but he also did it with his brain. He knew when to throw. He knew how to throw. He had to throw it on a line, didn't take anything off of it. It's up to Ja'Kai at that point to make the catch. And then with that play, let's see, that play for him was 71 yards. If he throws it just a couple mile an hour slower, he might get hit, may not even catch it and keep it. Maybe he fumbles, whatever, but he probably doesn't score. He got it to the young man early enough where Ja'Kai could make maneuvers before he got slaughtered, quite frankly. Those throws in between a corner and a safety are always bang, bang. Arm strength matters. Ask receivers that have been lit up by, let's just say, noodle arm quarterbacks in the past. I think Florida State is in a good spot now because they got a guy like that. But here's the interesting part, and I don't have an answer to this. You want to comment on the YouTube page, whatever, fire away. Luke's always had a good arm, and he's thrown some bullets while he's been in Florida State. I'll grant you. But he had several plays where it was just convincing. That one maybe the most so, and it's just like the light went on. Why so early? It is rare for a player in his 5th game. That was the first game that he officially burned his red shirt. Where if you burn your red shirt and you're just 5 games in, you still shouldn't be making decisive plays like that. So that's a big thumbs up. The light has gone on. He's more convinced that he can make a play. It's not just a playbook issue or whatever. He's understanding things after the snap. Sometimes you come up with the pre-snap read, like, I got this guy over here. And you might until they change the coverage. A lot of young quarterbacks, and I've talked about this with Luke and Brock, they are really awful. If they see, even if it's a generic defense that the team rolls into, they freeze. They either get sacked or throw it right to a defender. Luke started going away from that. Here's another key stat in regards to his development. Pro Football Focus has a statistic called turnover-worthy plays. This is the number he had against Charleston Southern. 0 throws. He did not put the ball in harm's way yet, was 65%, 3 touchdowns. Now, I know it's a poor team that they're playing, but the concepts are still there. You still got to have ball placement, and you got to have conviction with what you're doing. Luke Kromenhoek showed that, and that's why they won the game going away. That's why they were so convincing. Even after halftime, they improved more. Got a little confidence in the first half. Came out in the second half, lit them up. So with that, here are a few of the statistics for him throughout the game. He had 4 big passing plays, the 71-yarder Ja'Kai, 29-yarder to Landon Thomas, 25-yarder Hakeem Williams, and the 38-yarder. It was good to see Mekhi Danzy get a nice pass down inside the 10. That's 4 big plays. When you have that many that are over 20 yards, including obviously one that goes 71, it's hard to lose. So that's really good. As far as third downs, I talk about this all the time. 5 out of 7 for 36 yards. Not enormous numbers, but it's still 71.4%. And he didn't throw it into harm's way. Again, that cannot be taken away from this. He's done a great job of throwing the football where it has a chance to go to his guy or nobody. Very, very important. He had 51 snaps for the game. Pro Football Focus gave him an 83.6 grade for his quarterback play. That's pretty darn good. His rushing percentage by PFF was also 77.3. That's nice. His overall PF grade was 90.2. How many true freshmen do you know that hit a number like that? That's really, really impressive. Statistically, just in general here, 13 and 20, 209, 3 touchdowns, 10.5 yards per attempt, and he was 8 carries for 31 yards rushing. I would say the only other stat that was really, really convincing for me, you know how I talk about all the time, how well do you run the ball on first down? Well, Florida State, they did what they wanted with the running backs. Everybody had a consistent game, but they had 6 out of 8 on first downs when Luke was in the game, 125 yards. They dictated the pace. Again, I know it's an FCS opponent. That's fine. But when you play an inferior team, you have to smoke them. And that's what Florida State did. 6 out of 8, 125 yards. It's tremendous. So I think that they're in a pretty good spot here. I also think that there's still room to grow with him. And there are some areas that I want to talk about, good and bad. That is next here on Locked on Seminoles. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the National Football League, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more from the same place where you make your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. What did he do well? What did he need to work on? That's next right here on Locked on Seminoles. First off, the things that I like the best, awareness. Again, I went back to that throw to Ja'Kai. He also didn't take unneeded risks. He was happy still handing the ball off when they could get 4 yards, 5 yards, keep him ahead of the chains. He also used good trajectory when he had to throw a line, he did. If he had to put a little arc on one, he did. He found different ways to get the football to the guys that are the playmakers. Finally, pocket awareness is a little better. He had a little more time. Again, it's not like it was a great opponent, but he did get hit some in the first half. He's got a ways to go on pocket awareness, but it's improved. That is a lifelong quarterback learning skill because every team you play is different. Your linemen are healthier or not as healthy each week. It's a variable. We've still got to get better at that, learning how to get rid of the football, maybe throw it away a few more times. Let your percentage go down, but you get more first downs because you're not in 3rd 12. Those kind of situations will come back to haunt you. Finally, with his awareness, I think it's just the ability to know the score and situation. It's one thing for me to say it's sitting in a chair where I live. It's another thing to have somebody that's not very happy with you coming at you trying to hit you as hard as that person can possibly do it. And he still had the awareness to make throws under duress. At the end of the day, the guys that are really good in college and obviously at the National Football League level have to know that the hit's coming and it's going to suck. And they still got to use proper technique, not speed up their delivery, make an accurate throw to give their guy a chance. It's arguably the most difficult skill to do. Know that you're about to go through severe pain and have to do it exactly the same way you would anyway, even if it was just you and your receiver throwing routes on air. It's darn near impossible. Even NFL quarterbacks don't step into throws like that very often. Luke is getting better at being around that kind of pressure. We'll see how much he gets to the point where he can take a hit and throw. There's a little bit of play with that statement because some quarterback coaches will tell their guy just not to do it because they don't want their guys getting hit, period. They'd rather punt the football. But if you're going to throw it, you might as well step into it and make it happen. He's starting to get to that point where he's more comfortable with guys around his feet. Still a ways to go, but I was happy with it. Accuracy. He was obviously more accurate, way more accurate. Again, I think that's more from the shoulders up, just being more fluent with the offensive playbook, being the guy in practice that gets the reps. It makes huge difference. It's not something you can just put a finite term on, but it is something that's very important for Luke to get now moving forward. He'll get all the reps pretty much with the number ones, I would assume, this week against the Gators and going into that game and Doak Campbell. That's going to help it. This will be the second week that he's the guy. There's no doubt about it. That's got to give you some mojo and some confidence with each and every play that you install this week, Monday through Thursday. Got to do it. It'll probably help him study in film session today, Monday, etc., preparing for a pretty complex Gators defense. They do some different things, and they certainly got the better of Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin with some of their blitz packages. That's something that I'll talk about now. That's something right now that he doesn't know how to deal with because, no offense to Charleston Southern, they're A, not an SEC defense, and B, they don't have the length and speed that a team like Gators do. The Gators have a lot of really good looks, and I even commented on X how their defensive staff did a nice job of keeping Kiffin's group a little bit off balance with the pass rush they used because they made very late adjustments, which is going to give Luke problems at the line of scrimmage on passing downs or just any time they wanted to really come after him. They would shift late, which sometimes causes your O-line to jump. You see a lot of teams do that, especially Georgia. And they would also overload a side. If Luke is not ready to shift and manipulate his O-line, and that's hoping they actually do what they're supposed to, Florida State is going to get sacked about 7-8 times in this game coming up next weekend. It'll be the number one factor, and I want to talk about it in every single podcast I do this week. How does Florida State adjust to late movement by the Florida front? That's kind of the next thing that he has to do. There are very few teams that do it like that. It's hard to prepare for it. And some of it's just going to be making an ad-lib play after the snap because even if you adjust to it, doesn't mean they don't beat the block in a one-on-one. They're going to bring more than Florida State can block. And not that Florida State's O-line's that great. They still struggled some against Charleston Southern. I mean, they gave, I think it was 3 sacks, which is inexcusable, but that's how bad Florida State's O-line is. So it'll be really interesting to see what Luke, the coaching staff, everybody comes up with to try to fix that. Are they going to leave an extra guy in? Is he going to try to just go empty and really dare them to come after him with hot reads and just throw fades where they can't really get to him? It's going to be a really big cat and mouse game. I love that stuff. Florida's, again, Armstrong's pretty aggressive defense coordinator, and that's why college football is great. Next, taking shots downfield, especially against the Gators this next weekend. He had like the play against Charleston Southern and Mackay, a running back like Tofili, Cam Davis. I've said this all year, and it's obvious anyway. If you can get guys just a swing pass in like full stride, obviously it's not a bomb, but it changes the game because you put them in enough one-on-ones, they're going to get you first downs, if not break one. Tofili especially is so shifty and nimble, that can be a problem. But Kai Danzy's maybe the fastest guy on the team. You saw what he could do when he's throwing the football. That's an explosive athlete. If they can get 1 or 2 plays down the field and start to get the Gators to back up or just take all-out chances, I think they can be had on some screens. If you blitz on a screen, that's a problem. And if you blitz and Florida State's just throwing fade balls, Hakeem, Benson, whoever it is, and get one-on-ones, you got a chance. I didn't think DJ was very good at those throws. It's what he was supposed to be able to do, but he was very inconsistent. Luke's better at it. If you're going to have any chance to beat Florida, you got to hit chunk yardage plays constantly. It needs to be Florida State's number 1 game of the year, bar none, not even close, when it comes to hitting those plays if they're going to win. Florida's the better football team. That's not really debatable. But if you hit chunk yardage plays so that offensive line doesn't hinder you as much, it gives you a puncher's chance at the very least. Plus, this is an opportunity to see what he can do just overall and improve his development. I don't know if he's going to see another team that's a unique all season in terms of how they blitz and do things. So I think that's good for him. Finally here with the taking shots downfield, if Florida State gets guys open, I'm just going to say this, to keep Luke's confidence high and to keep the team going, They can't drop any. They had a great, they didn't have any drops, I don't think, off the top of my head, against Charleston Southern. That can't happen against Florida, especially those deep balls. He's capable of throwing them. He's got a gun. They have got to catch the deep balls, and even mid-range shots, 15 to 20 yards downfield, must be complete. That can't be in question. Leave no doubt. When I come back, we're going to talk about some of the chemistry and why it's going to help with the receivers now being much more in sync with Luke. Now, that's going to help the run game and change the play calling. That's next here on Locked On Seminoles. Have you downloaded the Gametime app yet? Gametime gives you the opportunity to go to concerts, baseball games, basketball games, football games, or anything else you need right from your smartphone or tablet, and you can see where your tickets are. That's what I like the best about the Gametime app. You click on a ticket, and then you can see your seat from that venue to the pitcher's mound, to the basketball court, to the football field. You'll know right where you're at to that field on your phone. They also have something called Gametime Picks. It filters out all the fluff and shows you all the incredible deals in general they have, so you don't have to search around. It makes it a lot easier for you. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Florida State is coming up with this game with Florida, and I think the Charleston Southern was an opportunity to get their feet wet on some of the things they needed to do with the young receivers. Guys like B.J. Gibson, Wayne McCoy, Hakeem Williams, all getting some good run, and then, of course, the tight ends are playing like receivers. Landon Thomas and Amari, that's the kind of athletes that will give Florida some fits. If Luke Kromenhoek can make those throws and get started early, it's very important to get a fast start in that game. And I'll go a lot more in depth on Monday's show about UF and their defense. If we can see some progression again next week from what they showed against Charleston Southern, they can cause Florida some problems. That defense always has past problems with a guy getting turned loose. They have for 2 years. Why would it be any different against Florida State? You cannot turn loose anybody at the college football level, especially with the speed Florida State has. They got a chance for at least one free touchdown if they just run their routes crisp, believe in what they're supposed to do, and block for each other on screens. Florida is susceptible to really dumb plays. They've shown it for 2 years. Let's see what happens. So trusting the new receivers, though, it has something else that's interesting. If you start hitting those plays, Armstrong, I'm still thinking he's going to blitz. I would. I mean, still, Luke's 5 games into his career. He's not ready for Florida's defense. I don't care how much they could practice for 3 weeks. He's not going to be ready for it. You don't know what that's like until you've physically seen it. So it is what it is. Having stated that, if you can connect a few passes early and you show the same chemistry you did against Charleston Southern, just with the routes being there and the ball being delivered on time, add a few screens, maybe a flea flick. There's going to be a trick play from Florida State at some point, and Florida. They'll probably both throw it. If you can get that going, that creates something that's very, very important. Internal momentum, meaning the coaching staff and players believe in themselves and each other, and any play call that comes in, you think you can execute it. The first 5 minutes of that game, assuming Florida State gets the ball in the first 5 minutes, I would assume they will. They have to be 100% crisp in the passing game. They're going to try to load the box and make Luke beat them. I would, and so would every other defense coordinator and person with the common sense to understand he's still a true freshman. Yeah, it's Charleston Southern. They beat up on a bad team. It's what you're supposed to do, but it's still Charleston Southern. Florida's going to dare them to throw the football. I get it. That's what they should do. Now you got to prove that you can do it. And if you want to put 7 in the box, play man-on-man against our receivers, Ja'Kai in particular, I don't think they can cover him. That should be a mismatch. And Amari and Landon are the other two. They don't have guys that are going to cover them consistently. They don't. Nobody has guys that are going to cover 6'4", 230-pound kind of guys that run like they do one-on-one. Linebackers aren't built that way. It's just not how it works. So if they can get the chemistry again with those, especially down the field, seam route, post route, switch at the line of scrimmage, maybe get a linebacker that's not one of their faster guys for Florida on Amari or something, you can hit plays down the field early in the game. Then it changes Florida's play calling, and FSU could actually be a little more conservative and run the ball and just do play action. If you take something off Luke's plate because they're backing off, that's okay. I don't care if he's a check down Charlie against Florida, 4 to 6 yards, stay ahead of the chains. And again, that stat I mentioned earlier in the show, turnover-worthy plays will be very low. If you do not start out fast and Florida's defense eats him up, this game can get out of hand. Imperative that Florida State does a good job, and there's a lot of ways you could approach this. I'm not going to get into specifics of play calling, but they have to get him off to a hot start with plays he is personally comfortable with. This is where sometimes coaches get too cute. Let him design at least half the plays that he wants to run on the scripted, 10 to 15 plays that Florida State runs, and especially with the third down throws. It needs to be Luke. I know coaches hate that stuff, but he's 18 years old. You take him out of his comfort zone, it's not going to go well. I'll be curious to see his body language when they throw the football. If it's an incomplete, if there's a drop, if it looked uncomfortable, the route wasn't there, if there's miscommunication, how does he develop? That's important for his long-term development too. But if he can do that consistently, again, those first 5 minutes, maybe in 7 to 10, Florida State can be in the game, and then it's on from there. Florida's chance to knock FSU out comes in those first 5 minutes or so. They have to get after him. They're going to try to take away the run game and make Luke beat him in man-on-man coverage. I almost guarantee it. You'll see about 5 different blitzes. You will see every possible change of coverage in the back end that they can throw at him, hoping to get a freebie, an easy pick. Again, this is the same thing that every defense coordinator I've ever learned from will talk about. Show different zones, different looks pre-snap, change it, make him learn, make his mind go crazy, and the ball goes the other direction. It's an open playbook. So you got to be very, very comfortable with the plays that you do run if you're FSU to get the ball out quick so he doesn't get hit, obviously. And you can make them think about blitzing and maybe backing off and playing generic. It's not easy for Florida State to go down the field 5 yards of play. I get that. But they can't turn the ball over either. Worst case, they need to be punting. If they punt 7, 8 times in the game, that's okay. They need to have this number right here, 0 in their turnover column against the Gators. So that's something to think about. To make all of this work, again, he's got to be ready for more complex stuff. 2, he's got to make even quicker decisions than he did against Charleston Southern. It wasn't terrible, but he did get sacked once or twice on some of those plays. He probably could have either got out of it, changed the protection, something. It's not just after the snap. It's things that he has to make decisions with. The decisions start before the ball snap. Let me be very clear about that. He's got to be ready when he sees an overload or something. It's okay to burn a timeout. Do not get hit. Do not take sacks. You must be ready with your pre-snap decisions, and that's the final point. If you see something that's not there, you don't have time to adjust. Either take the delay penalty or just call a timeout. Sometimes it's better just to accept that play wasn't going to work out and move on. Don't make a play worse. With that, Florida State's got its quarterback. That's key. And it's cool that we're talking about Florida State having a quarterback going against the Gators. Florida State versus Florida. It is a great rivalry. It is one of the best rivalries in all of American sport, not just college football, not just universities, in all of American sport. Let's enjoy it. Every day this week, I'm going to have something about the history, some of the things that I remembered from the rivalry, Spurrier's comments and all that stuff, Free Shoes University, all that stuff. I lived through that era when I was young. I loved it. It's one of the reasons I started following all the programs in the South the way I did, especially Florida State. I was just fascinated with them. But at the same time, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts tomorrow on Monday's show, talking about Florida's defense, which players to worry about, which players that the Gators should be worried about themselves because Florida State could exploit, and we'll go from there. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate you stopping and talk some Noles with me. If you have not already, please like and subscribe to this podcast, share it, hit that notification bell. And above all else today, I'm curious what you think about Luke. Comment if you're on the YouTube page, and I'd love to hear from you. So, and lastly, if you want to find me on X, it's at FBScout_Florida. That's FBScout_Florida. See everyone on Monday.